Hello, and welcome to episode 1 of the Alliance Wealth Advisor podcast. This is an idea I've wanted to bring to fruition for a long time. That's because one of the best parts of my job over the years has been how I get to sit and have fascinating conversations with interesting people who always tell us so much about their lives and what is important to them. These conversations allow us to be better advisors for our clients, but at the same time, it makes us better at our jobs. My hope is that by bringing some of these conversations with business owners, high-performing individuals, and thought leaders in their field to the forefront, we can help others learn how people thought through their very important decisions in their lives and give a glimpse into the conversations we have with clients. Many identify our industry as people who buy and sell stocks, insurance, or other financial products. However, at Alliance, it's a little bit different. We focus on building deep relationships and processes that fit each client's individual life and their goals. While our role as advisors to clients can mean different things for different people, one thing remains the same. We help our clients think through where they are in their life and how to get where they want to go. I am so excited to be with Maggie Mineo Zayac for episode number 1, the owner of the Daisy Collective in Scranton, Pennsylvania. So first of all, Maggie, welcome to the podcast, the first of what is hopefully many. Congratulations. Maggie and her husband Brian recently welcomed Max Zayac to the world. How has baby number 2 been amongst everything else?
Baby number 2 is a dream. He's so much easier than our first, Wilson. Everything is going great. We're still trying to adjust, having a business, having 2 kids now, day by day.
Yeah. And so I think first it makes sense for you to tell us a little bit about your story.
Absolutely.
A lot of it I know, but just for the audience and, I'm sure there's some of it I don't know, obviously.
Right.
But tell us sort of, a little bit of your background, and we'll start there and see where the conversation goes.
Okay. I graduated from Marywood University with a degree in journalism and fine art. My dream was kind of always to write for a fashion magazine. So I randomly one day, my mom called me and said, my older sister at the time was living in New York City. She was getting her master's at Parsons School of Design, and her roommate situation, something happened, it fell through. She was going to be living on her own, wasn't comfortable with it. So my parents, said, Maggie, you know what? I think you need to do this for your older sister. And I said, okay, sure. I had no real plan here. I interned with Electric City.
Okay.
I was doing some writing for them, applied for a job at the Times, didn't get the job. So I said, you know what? There's nothing tying me here. I'm just going to go to New York, see what happens.
When you were growing up and in college, high school and college, did you think you'd leave Northeastern PA?
No, I really didn't.
Okay.
No. My plan was kind of always just to stay here. I was comfortable here. This is what everybody in my family did. We stayed here, and
Sure.
that's
Well,
where
New York's
I thought
a
it
heck
was.
of a left turn
Tell
from
me
that
about
plan.
Tell me about it. So I moved there, like I said, with no real plan. I got there. We lived on the Upper East Side. I took a walk around the block, and I stumbled upon a Free People store, which has been my favorite brand since I was in 8th grade 20 years ago. I just love everything about it. So it was very exciting and comforting at the same time that was right down the street. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to go in. I'm going to apply, see if they have any part-time jobs.
Wow.
Yeah, right off the bat. So I got a job. I started off as a visual design associate. So I was working on a team designing the window displays, designing the interior, pretty much just the overall aesthetic of the store, which was awesome for me because I have an art background. So it was a good creative outlet.
Did you have a lot of autonomy in terms of what you could do in the store, or was there sort of a lot of guidance from corporate?
Yes, there was definitely a lot of guidance. It was a team of 5 of us. They had a set what they wanted every month, but we also had the freedom to kind of do what we wanted. And it was funny because I loved doing that. I loved doing the creative side of it. But every now and then they would ask me to jump in to the customer service side to help customers, help at the cash wrap.
Right.
So I jumped in and I actually started to really like that, talking to customers. I'm just a very social person to begin with. I like talking to people. I like getting to know them. So I had a lot of fun helping them pick out outfits for special occasions in their life. So my role actually turned into more of a hybrid role. I was doing the creative visual stuff a couple days a week and then jumping in to help style people, help style photo shoots, and planning in-store events, which I loved because I got to do, two different things, the best of both worlds, I thought.
Especially that young, having sort of the freedom to do things
right,
you're
I was
interested
21,
in.
22, so it was awesome. And then I did that for a whole year, jumping back and forth. And then I'm a pretty fast learner, I will say, and I'm very competitive. So I got really good at what I was doing. And then within a year, I was promoted to manager of the store.
Wow.
I started as assistant manager underneath the store manager. And I learned every aspect of the business. I kind of went into more of a behind the scenes role. I did everything from hiring, scheduling, allocation, stocking the store. I pretty much had my hand in everything, which was huge for me. And I always credit that experience, as hard as it was at times. It made me who I am today. And that's kind of where the Daisy Collective, how it came to be.
So you're in the manager role.
Yeah.
And you're enjoying more parts
Yes.
or some parts more than others, I'm sure.
Yes.
But you're essentially operating a business.
Absolutely. And I tried to make it it wasn't a small business, it's a huge company, but I tried to get that small business feel in New York City, which obviously was very challenging.
Sure.
I think the biggest challenge for me was learning how to manage people.
Yeah.
I think it's still something that I struggle with. And I very much missed the one-on-one interaction with the actual customers.
With the customer themselves.
The clients, yes. I was mostly, in the back making sure everything ran smoothly, which as a manager, that's what you have to do.
Yeah. So as you're in that role for a year
and
you get
a
promoted
half.
to manager.
Oh, yes.
Then a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
At what point do the wheels start turning in terms of, wait, this is something I want to do?
Yes, definitely. So I definitely realized that it was a passion of mine to work in retail, something that I never really,
So
thought
that was
about.
not on the radar.
No, not at all. Not
It's
at all.
funny how life works.
I
like
know.
that.
I when I first started at Free People, I thought, oh, well, maybe I can work in their showroom, or maybe I could move to Philly and work in their home office doing some sort of design work or whatever. I never thought retail would, end up being my career.
Mm-hmm.
I'm obviously so grateful that it was, but it's living in New York, and I mean, Mike, you have lived in New York. You have to be a certain kind of person to, truly live it and love it and stay there and, have a family and whatnot. But I think I realized, it's funny, this actually happened. I remember going to work one day and I had a couple hard weeks in a row and I was going back and forth. Do I want to move home? Do I want to stay here? I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I remember going to work and I was saying to myself, please just let one familiar face come through the door, somebody from home, somebody who knew me by name, because I was missing that. In New
just
York,
for a
you
shot
never,
in the arm.
you never see the same person twice. I really missed that about being home.
It's almost, I remember, you'd run into somebody from the area or from college in New York on a subway or something.
Yep.
It's almost jarring.
It totally is wait a second, you look familiar. This is great. Oh, it makes you feel good, whether it's for 2 seconds or whatever.
Yep.
But it was in that moment that I thought, you know what? I want to move home and maybe I can do a version of this at home in Scranton.
Wow. So that realization comes.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like it was, if you're looking for somebody from home, anybody to walk in the door, it's probably this is a sign.
Uh-huh.
So how long after And this is where I really want to focus a good amount of the conversation because, these inflection points in people's lives, they go a long way in dictating someone's path.
Right.
And so a lot of people have them. They're not sure how to think through them. And so, someone who rolled the dice and said, you know what, I'm going to do this on my own terms like you did. I think there's a lot, to be said for that. And so understanding it, I think is really interesting.
Yeah.
So you have that realization, what happens next? You start saying, like, am I looking for spaces to rent? Am I putting together a business plan? Like, where did you start?
So I moved home, I want to say June, July of that year. And then my business opened in November of 2013.
Okay. So that was yeah.
So I came home, talked to my parents, told them everything I liked, what I didn't like about what I was doing there. And my mom is always, you have to do what you love, go after your dreams. What's the worst thing that can happen? And I'm kind of thinking like, well, a lot of really bad things can happen. But I trust my parents so much. My dad has always had his own business. My grandparents had their own businesses, both sides. So it's kind of in my blood.
Yeah, it's not unfamiliar. And it probably feels a little less risky than it does,
totally.
For somebody whose parents were teachers or worked at big companies their whole lives. Yeah.
I always knew, the risk is there, but let's, the happiness and the joy that comes from it probably outweighs the negative. Right. So I went for it. I had obviously a lot of contacts at Free People because I knew I wanted to bring Free People into the mix. I knew I wanted to carry it.
Why? The style, the quality of the company,
everything.
What was it?
They were just such a pleasure to work for. I believe wholeheartedly in everything that they stand for.
Which is,
just,
believe it or not, I don't shop often at Free People.
You would never know. It's just like they are just a lifestyle brand. They care about like the whole person.
Okay.
And that's kind of my inspiration for the Daisy Collective. And I'll tell you really quick what the Daisy Collective is. So it's a women's boutique, obviously, located in downtown Scranton. And we have everything from women's clothing to accessories and home decor. So it's pretty much, it encompasses somebody's entire life. And I always say it's for the modern day bohemian because that is just the style of.
I like that.
I love that.
That's good.
Yes, and that's my style.
That's a good tagline.
Yes. It's more modern than like your typical, hippie from the 60s and 70s that you're thinking about.
How did you know I was thinking about that?
I could tell. So I really did. Like I brought in every aspect that I loved about Free People, and my other favorite store is Anthropologie, which is a lot of home stuff. So those two stores were pretty much my inspiration with my own twist on it.
They're in the DNA of the Daisy.
Totally.
What would you say is for someone who's not shopping there regularly or has never been there, listens to that? What would you say the biggest misconception is?
Yes. The biggest misconception would be, that store is just for young people. That store is just for 20-something-year-olds. Okay. I get that all the time, and I think women are surprised when they bring their 20-something-year-old daughters in, and they say, "Oh, wow, they're like, I could actually wear some of these things." If the clothing isn't your style, you might find a necklace, a candle, something for your house. I truly think that there's something for everyone. But yeah, it's definitely not just for young people. And I think it's interesting to see how the style of the store has changed from when I opened it to where I am now, because I think I'm a different person. I'm in a different stage of life.
I'm assuming it evolves with you.
Yes, absolutely.
Which is...
Yes, you can tell now I have more comfy stuff because I'm a mom, and that's just, that's what I'm gravitating towards now.
But it's a reflection of where you're at in your life.
Absolutely. And I think you can see that as soon as you walk in.
That's pretty cool. I mean, there's not many avenues one can take where it's a reflection on you and your life. And
that's why I take it, so seriously, and I put my all into it because it is a reflection of me.
That's great. So in that piece, it sounds like your parents, were almost playing a consultant role for you.
They were.
Pushing you along, which is great. What what was the scariest part? So you had already moved home, so you needed to do something.
I needed to do
and
something.
that helps,
right?
Right. But what was the scariest thing? You're in between those 3 or 4 months. You're in bed at night thinking about it.
Right.
What was it that scared you the most?
Probably just the money that you need to put into a business like this up front. Like I needed to stock a store before I ever even had a sale.
Yeah.
That obviously made me nervous. I grew up in a conservative household in terms of money. I remember we never talked about, like, my parents never had a credit card. It was always if you don't have the money, you shouldn't spend it.
Yeah.
And my parents were always very successful, so I kind of adapted
towards that. Sure.
Yes, absolutely.
And one thing, we see it all the time in our industry,
right?
Is your relationship with money. It's a lot like your relationship with your store that you just mentioned, right? And that over time it evolves, but it generally starts with your early interactions with money and with your parents,
absolutely,
or whoever raised you. And so, you coming from a place where debt was not common,
right?
First of all, that's generally a great thing, right? But it does make things scary.
Absolutely, when opening a business.
Yeah. And so was there anything else on that front? Or were you, it sounds like you were pretty confident in the vision you had.
I was very confident. That's the one thing that really it made me feel good about always pushing forward, because I was so set on what I wanted to do, and I really, really thought that it would be successful.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's what maybe young people struggle with. Like, they don't know what they want to do. They don't know their personal style. Their interests are all over the place. And I just think that if you have a passion or a hobby or an interest and you can make money off of it, like, that's what you need to do.
Yeah. I would say, though, because, that's sort of become a buzzword, right? Like, follow your passion.
Right.
You hear it at every graduation speech ever.
Right.
It's sort of like a cliche at this point. What is interesting about you and your passion, at least to me, is you had no idea that was your passion until you went out into the world and started trying things. And that's one thing, if you're 22, you probably need to take some time to figure out what it is and work hard, and then take that pivot, make that leap.
Right.
And that's where I think, your story is helpful to people probably.
Right.
Because,
and I always think, like, if I was telling my 22-year-old self this, I would say, and it's hard in the moment, but every experience, good, bad, mostly the bad experiences, you can't look at them as failures. A failed relationship, like, you didn't get the job that you applied for, the move didn't work out. It's never a failed experience. That experience got you to where you need to be. If I didn't not get the job at the Times, I wouldn't have moved to New York. If I didn't walk around the block and explore the neighborhood, I wouldn't have gone into Free People. I wouldn't have started that whole journey that got me back here and opening up my store.
Yeah, it's so interesting to think about.
Nothing is a coincidence.
Yeah, especially sort of my thought on it, and this is a podcast about you, but is very similar in that if you're doing the right things, the things will happen. And it may not be anything like you anticipated, but if you are working on the right things, you're being a good person, you're working on yourself, all of those things, doors open in odd ways.
Absolutely.
And you
look back and you realize, wow, okay, that was totally there for a reason.
Yeah. So speaking of that, that's a heck of a segue you just made. So COVID.
Yeah. How about it?
We're hopefully, knock on wood, we're on the other end. In your business and in your sector of the economy, it was hit the hardest, obviously. So tell me about sort of those first scary months.
Yes.
How you thought through it, and how you personally, but also the store, sort of got to the other side.
Yeah, right. Like you just said, it was very scary. And I mean, so many businesses were affected. I guess first and foremost, just my day-to-day life was just so uprooted. I was used to being at the store 5 days a week. I looked forward to it. I had that routine. And then being stuck at home, not being able to go down there and do what I love to do, talking to people. It was definitely scary. And my business thrives, obviously, having my doors open and having people coming in. But I usually always find a silver lining. I always try to look at the positive. One thing that did come out of being closed was my brother, who owns a digital marketing firm, Pat Mineo.
Nice plug there.
Yes. He had for months been pushing me. We have to, move your store to an online experience. We need to get you in the online shopping world. And I would say, yeah. But I was busy in the store trying to perfect that experience. But I always knew that, I needed to make that transition. So it was almost like I was forced to do it. Mm-hmm. That was the only way I was going to generate sales, was if I started selling things online. So Pat came over the one night, and my husband Brian, and we kind of just brainstormed what I wanted the website to be like. Because my main thing is I want it to have some sort of personal touch, like some sort of resemblance to the actual experience you get coming into my store.
Well, you can't put so much effort into the experience and then have the website be vanilla.
Well, exactly. And I mean, I still every day, Pat and I are trying to come up with new ways to get people to shop online and have it be somewhat interactive. But it was a huge success. I think the biggest thing was I was realizing all of the relationships that I had made over the last 8 years is what saw me through, because those people were the ones reaching out to me. Let me know if I can buy something online. I want to support you, and I saw huge success with the online store, and still to this day.
It's so interesting because in my sort of, my day job, we're doing research on the economy, on the markets, on businesses, and, retail is strictly viewed as transactional, right? So you have comp store sales, you have, the amount of flow going in and out of traffic, or traffic going in and out of stores, and how that translates into revenue. But at the end of the day, you've created a niche where it's a relationship business.
Totally.
And how do you think about that moving forward?
Right.
With, retail's dead. It's all, like the sort of the narratives you've heard, Amazon's coming for everybody.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's
Tell me
truly
more
not,
about how you think about it.
Those tried and true customers that I've had from the beginning, they love to come in. Like, some people will come in and just say, I'm not going to buy anything today, but I just wanted to come and have a conversation. And I absolutely, that's my favorite part of the job. There are always going to be those people who maybe look at the website, browse it, see what I have, but they still want to come in.
Yeah.
The website, which is great is I have those customers who, from the beginning, when they were in 8th grade, high school, they would come in every Saturday with their mom or their grandma. Well, now they've moved on. They're older. They're gone off to college. They moved to Philly. They moved to New York. I see them maybe around the holidays, but now they have a reason to go on the daisycollective.com and see what I have in store and shop their own way. And shipping's always free. It's so easy. I just ship it out to them. They get it within 2 to 3 days, and they still feel like they're a part of the store.
And so that sounds like, and this is usually when it's a good sign of a business, right? You're sort of zigging when everyone else is zagging. You're sort of leaning into that relationship, personal feel when everything else seems to be going the other way.
Totally.
Would you say that's the biggest opportunity as you think about looking ahead, or, what does the path look like moving forward in terms of growth, but also just building the brand, and building awareness around it?
Totally. So I'm still working on making the in-store experience obviously the best that it can be. In terms of the online experience, Pat and I were talking last night about maybe implementing some sort of chat feature so that when people are shopping online, they could, hey, Maggie, I'm just wondering about this shirt. I normally take this size. What do you suggest for me? Just to make it interactive, make it feel personal, like they're walking in the store talking to me.
Yeah. Do you, so on the other side of that coin, as you look ahead, what are the biggest risks to the business?
The biggest risks are, I would just say, people, maybe that will be more convenient. Maybe people won't want to come into the store. I have no idea. I think that my business is going to be forever evolving. But what I'm doing right now is working, thank God. But just always coming up with new things. People have been asking, when are you going to design your own stuff? So this past fall, we started to design our own graphic tee lines.
Oh, very cool.
So that when people come in, they can't find that anywhere else. And it says the Daisy Collective on the back, just something special. And I think the people who have moved away to have like a little piece of home would be great.
Well, and I think people, it's clear through COVID, you said it, people support you.
Right.
The relationships they've built with you being there. And so, carrying that brand out of the store, like people want to do that.
Absolutely. And also opening another location is always on the radar for me. I obviously need to get my little boys into school before I start to do that because that would be a little bit hectic. But yeah, that's always in the back of my mind.
So, obviously that's something I can certainly relate to. Having a kid in the last few months and, balancing schedules and the logistics and everything that goes with that. I think, that's another thing that people sort of look to when they're thinking about making a leap or changing jobs.
Right.
Or, it's, this seems to be working and, let's wait till the kid is able to go to school or high school. So how do you and your husband think through that? Is it a sit down and really think through it? Is it a day-to-day thing? Because I think a lot of people, especially, in our age group and younger who are thinking about families, struggle with that because, our parents' age,
our moms were home with us.
Exactly. I was lucky enough to have my mom home. Me too. And, so that made it simpler. It wasn't easy for her, but it was simpler in terms of what the, whose duties were what. And so, with a 2-parent household, both working, how do you guys manage that? How do you think about it?
Well, I don't think that you should ever put your dream on hold. You just have to make sure that you have the help around you. When I got pregnant with Max, it was during the pandemic. So I focused on getting my employee, Kellyanne, who I just can't even say enough about her. She is a godsend. I am so grateful every day that I have her. But my main focus was to teach her every aspect of the business so that she can succeed, so that she could be comfortable at the store when I'm away. And I took more of a back seat. I'm the behind the scenes person now. And that's definitely something that I struggle with, delegating tasks to other people. I like to do everything myself. And I think as a small business owner, many people would agree with that.
I think one thing we see all the time with business owners is
no, I'll do it.
They almost want to clone themselves rather than just teach somebody who may have a different skill set how to do different parts of the job.
Well, that's the thing. I started looking at her as such an asset because she's 10 years younger than me. So she has this whole different outlook on life than I do. She has her own style. She knows about that age group, and it's really helped me succeed in ways that I probably wouldn't have even touched upon if I hadn't hired her. And it's really crazy to think that now that I'm back to work a couple days a week, when I'm there, people will come in and say, "Oh, Kellyanne's not working today." And you'd think I'd maybe be a little hurt by that, but it brings such joy that people love her as much as I love her. And now the Daisy Collective, it's not just me, it's her too. And I love that we're a team.
Yeah, I think, one thing, you haven't said the word, but I keep sort of hearing it, whether it's the evolution of the store, the evolution of the website, how you're going to look towards the future is flexibility.
Totally.
And a lack of ego in terms of, a lot of business owners who've put their whole life into something and then somebody asks for somebody else.
Right.
They may not say it out loud, but they're not going to be thrilled with it necessarily.
Right. But I also have realized I can't do this on my own. And I don't want to.
Yeah.
I really don't. I want to share all of the knowledge and the experience that I've had to help other young people,
How do you think about, balance in your life? Do you, like you said, you don't want to, right? There's more to it. There's more to life than running a business.
Yes.
So what does balance look like for you?
Yeah. So I'm still figuring that out for sure, but I've always been fairly good at realizing when I'm getting stressed, when I need to, take a step back. Working out has always, since I'm little, has been my go-to stress relief. If I could do a half an hour on the Peloton or go for a walk or go for a run, I just feel so much better. Things are manageable. And luckily, I am the person who I could say to Brian or I could say to my mom, you know what, I need an hour. I'm going to go do this. I'll be back and I'll be better.
Yeah. What other tools do you use, if any, for that release or that, that Maggie time,
right?
Sort of to get your head back on straight when things are going crazy?
Honestly, the other thing that helps me so much is just getting in the car with my thoughts and just talking out loud. As you can see, I like to talk. Yeah, just never holding things in.
Yeah.
Helps me.
Yeah. I agree with that. And I think our tendency is generally, and I don't know if that's, around this area or, our parents' generation, they didn't necessarily talk things out.
No, absolutely not.
And
I also think it's easier for a woman to talk things out too. Like you guys kind of have to be the strong, tough, nothing's bothering me. So that's a whole different conversation.
Yeah, we need another podcast for that one. So another thing I wanted to touch on was in that light, and you mentioned a couple things, but what about a routine? You had said COVID sort of blew that up.
Yeah, right.
Do you find a routine helpful? I think, one thing I've heard in the last half hour or so has been you're pretty good at going with the flow and being flexible.
Yes.
So do you
I would say I've always been a go with the flow type of person, and it is, for the most part, still my thing. I go with the flow. I wake up.
That comes natural to you?
It does.
Yeah.
It absolutely does. I definitely think that I take after my dad in that sense. But now having kids, you need a routine and you need a schedule. And so I'm slowly, routine works. It definitely does. But when it comes to the store, I really still am a go with the flow type of person.
Okay.
I just, whatever, you never know what's going to walk through the door, a problem, something positive. You don't know. You just have to be ready.
Well, to your earlier point, let it sort of come to you versus, holding on really tight.
Yes.
And it's not a failure or it's not a problem.
Right.
It's sort of the next thing.
Absolutely. It's just an experience to move you on down your path.
What is the biggest sort of obstacle that you've faced? And maybe it's obvious, maybe it's the last year in terms of building this store in sort of the image that you envision.
Right.
What has been that biggest obstacle?
The biggest
that you really
obstacle,
had to think about?
Obviously, outside of the pandemic, would be finding that balance between being there for my kids, being at home, not missing anything with them, like my parents never missed anything, but also being present at the store as much as I need to. I'm afraid to let one of those things suffer. I'm still trying to find out how to balance both of them.
Yeah.
To find that happy medium.
And it probably, I think it's something you always work at.
Totally.
Right?
It will always be that way. And it's never as bad as I think it is. But I have an obligation at home and I have an obligation at the store. So I'm just,
Yeah. So how do you, you know what I wanted to ask, and I need to go back. So this shows my sort of rookie nature of doing this. Daisy Collective. How do you come up with the name?
Okay, so back in college, we were doing in one of my writing classes, it was like a blog exercise. Do a blog. Mine was focused on fashion, my interests at the time. My sister Jen actually started calling me Daisy because it's a nickname for Margaret, which is my real name. So she would always call me Daisy, and then I figured collective is kind of like a collection of all of my favorite things at the time, a collection of all of my thoughts with the blog. But then it just made sense to name the store that because it's a collection of all of my favorite things.
Was there anything else in the running, or was it always
no?
The
It
Daisy
was
Collective?
it was always that. I never wavered.
Interesting.
Yep.
What is something in terms of, the store and your skill set, which obviously, a lot of your personality and all of that has helped build it the way it has.
Mm-hmm.
What is a weakness or something you're working on that you think would help both you personally and the store?
Well,
since
we
it is
already
a
touched
reflection
on
of
it,
you.
but it's very important. It's just the giving somebody else some of the responsibility.
Okay.
I think I'll always struggle with that, just because the Daisy Collective is Maggie Mineo Zayac.
It's personal.
It is. It's very personal. But like I said before, it's only helping me be the best business owner I can be by giving Kellyanne these other responsibilities.
So I think one thing that all good businesses have is that team nature, and it could be a 2-person shop, or it could be 200 people,
right.
But people willing to let others share credit to handle
absolutely.
different parts.
And the other thing that I think is so important that I learned at Free People, and it was something that I didn't like, was the managers or anybody higher up. I never want Kellyanne or any employee that I ever have in the future to think Maggie is not willing to work. She got to where she is, and now it's up to us to carry the torch. No, I'm cleaning out the dressing rooms. I'm mopping the floors. I'm doing anything that I would ask her to do. And I think that's so important.
It's huge.
It is.
It's huge in any industry.
Right.
Because people, it
you can always tell.
It doesn't take much for people to tell who's in the weeds,
absolutely,
rolling their sleeves up. And
there are so many business owners I feel like maybe are just too high above at some point, and they don't want to do the dirty work anymore. And I just don't think that you can ever be successful.
So what do you look for in new team members?
Yeah.
If new stores coming online, you're doing interviews for a manager.
Right.
What characteristics do you look for? Is it the same sort of as some of the ones that have made you successful? Is it?
I definitely think that they need to have that love to the need to talk to people, to get to know them, to treat people like whatever they're shopping for matters to them, because it truly matters to me, and I know it matters to Kellyanne. So that is just the number one, the number one quality that you need to have. It's not just a job. You're not just putting things in a bag and sending people on their way. Yeah. You have to have that need to have a connection with people.
What is your favorite item on sale today if you walked in the door?
I would have to say any home item. All of the pillows, all of the throws that I get, they're all one of a kind. They come from India. They're all embellished. Every day that I'm there, I struggle with not taking a pillow home. You can never have too many pillows. I mean, Brian will definitely disagree because you can't even sit on our couches. But
all right, so let's get into the real stuff then. Mm-hmm. How many pillows do you have at your house today?
Okay, between 2 couches, there are 10. So no, there is no room for you to sit on the couch.
So I will not be coming over.
No, I'm sorry.
So going to more of a personal side of you as we get closer to the end here, I don't want to take up too much of your time. As you look ahead to the world reopening and maybe having more time or some unplugged time for yourself,
right?
Where's the first place you'd want to go?
back to Colorado. My family and I did a Boulder trip.
Never been.
2 falls ago, we went to the Nebraska-Colorado game because my family is huge Nebraska football fans. Don't ask why. I'm not sure. We had the absolute best time. It's just something about Colorado. Everybody's active. Everybody's outdoors. Everybody's just obviously seemingly very happy. It just felt like a good place. It feels like a place that I could live.
Yeah. I'm dying to get to Colorado.
Yes, it's great. And just hiking the Rocky Mountain, it was incredible. So looking forward to getting back there.
Yeah. Well, let me know when you're going.
Yes, definitely.
So the last piece is, and you answered part of it already, but I think, what is important to get out of all of this sort of great information that you've shared is, all right, how can people apply it to their own lives and their own situations? What can they sort of take away? And so, if you were going back to 22-year-old Maggie,
right.
She just moved back, trying to figure out where she fits in the world and what she wants to do. What would you say to her?
You have to take the time to self-reflect. You have to think about what's important to you. Like I said, I think 5 times already today is don't look at things that have happened to you or not happened to you as failures. There's something out there for you. You need to recognize that the bad experiences are going to get you to where you need to be. I will 100% stand by that every time.
That's great. Maggie, thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Yes, it was. Thank you.
Thanks.